The rain was falling heavily over the small town of Riverton. The streets were empty, the wind was cold, and inside a tiny broken house near the railway tracks, a 19-year-old boy sat quietly beside a weak candle flame. His name was Ethan. He stared at the old ceiling while listening to the sound of his mother coughing in the next room. His father had passed away 3 years earlier after a factory accident. Since then, life had become a daily battle. His mother worked in a laundry shop for long hours. His younger brother Noah delivered newspapers before school, and Ethan carried the weight of a dream too big for his situation. He wanted to become successful, not just successful. He wanted to build something so big that his family would never suffer again. But every time he looked around, reality laughed at him. The walls of his house were cracked, the kitchen had almost no food, and sometimes the electricity stopped for days because they couldn't pay the bills. That night, Ethan whispered softly, "One day, I'll change everything." But deep inside, fear answered him. "How? You have no money, no connections, no opportunities." The next morning, Ethan woke up before sunrise. He walked through the freezing streets toward the city market, hoping to find temporary work. Every shop owner rejected him. "We don't need workers. Come next month. You're too inexperienced." After hours of searching, Ethan sat on a bench feeling hopeless. That's when an old man approached him. The man had white hair, tired eyes, and worn-out clothes. He pushed a small coffee cart through the streets. "You look lost," the old man said. Ethan forced a smile. "Just trying to survive." The old man handed him a cup of coffee. "Free?" Ethan asked. The man smiled slightly. "Nothing is truly free, son. You pay for everything, either with money, time, pain, or hard work." Those words hit Ethan deeply. The old man introduced himself as Henry. Henry sold coffee every morning near the train station. He worked alone despite being nearly 70 years old. Ethan asked quietly, "Why do you still work this hard at your age?" Henry looked at the busy station and replied, "Because life rewards movement. The moment you stop fighting for your future, life starts controlling you." Something changed inside Ethan that day. He gathered courage and asked, "Can I work with you?" Henry looked at him carefully. "The work is hard." "I'm ready." "The pay is small." "I don't care." Henry nodded slowly. "Then come tomorrow at 4 a.m. The next morning, Ethan arrived before Henry. The streets were dark, the city was asleep, but Ethan worked with full energy. He carried supplies, cleaned the cart, served customers politely. Some customers ignored him, some shouted at him, some treated him badly. But Ethan stayed calm. At the end of the day, Henry handed him a few dollars. Ethan looked disappointed for a second. The amount was tiny. Henry noticed his expression. "You think success arrives in one day?" he asked. Ethan stayed silent. Henry continued, "Most people quit because the beginning feels small, but big things always start invisibly." Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Ethan learned everything from Henry: how to speak confidently, how to attract customers, how to manage money, how to stay disciplined even when exhausted. One freezing winter morning, Henry suddenly collapsed beside the coffee cart. Ethan rushed him to the hospital. The doctor said, "His heart is weak. He needs rest." That evening, Henry called Ethan closer and said, "I can't continue this work anymore." Ethan lowered his head sadly. Then Henry smiled softly. "But you can." Ethan looked shocked. Henry handed him the cart keys. "This business is yours now." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "But why me?" "Because I watched you. You never complained. You never ran away from hard work, and that matters more than talent." For the first time in years, Ethan felt life giving him a chance. The next morning, he stood alone beside the coffee cart. He was nervous. What if customers didn't come? What if he failed? But then he remembered something Henry once said: "Fear disappears when action begins." So Ethan took a deep breath and started working. At first, business was slow. Many customers preferred bigger cafes nearby. Some laughed at his tiny coffee cart. One man even said, "You'll never compete with real businesses." That sentence hurt Ethan deeply, but instead of quitting, he used the pain as fuel. Every night he studied business videos in the public library. He learned marketing, customer service, money management. While others slept, Ethan learned. While others wasted time complaining, Ethan improved himself. Slowly, things started changing. He introduced special recipes, remembered customers' names, added friendly notes on coffee cups. People began returning, then they started bringing friends. Within 1 year, Ethan saved enough money to upgrade the cart into a small coffee shop. It wasn't fancy. The chairs were old, the walls were simple, but the atmosphere felt warm. People loved it. Ethan named it Second Sunrise Café because he believed everyone deserves another chance in life. Business grew rapidly, but success brought new problems. A huge coffee company opened directly across the street. Bright lights, luxury furniture, expensive advertisements. Everyone in town talked about it. Ethan's customers slowly decreased, bills piled up again, stress returned. One night, Ethan sat alone inside the empty cafe, staring at the floor. For the first time in years, he cried. He whispered, "Maybe this is where my journey ends." At that moment, his younger brother Noah entered quietly. He placed a small notebook on the table. "What's this?" Ethan asked. Noah smiled. "Customer comments." Ethan opened it slowly. Inside were dozens of handwritten messages. "Your cafe feels like home. Thank you for always treating us kindly. You inspired me to work harder. This place helped me during my hardest days." Ethan's hands trembled. He suddenly realized something powerful. People weren't coming only for coffee. They were coming because of the feeling he created. The next day, Ethan changed his strategy. Instead of competing with money, he competed with heart. He started free storytelling nights, motivational talks, small music evenings for local artists. He helped struggling students by offering free tea and study space. His cafe became more than a business. It became hope, and slowly, the town chose him again. Not because he was the richest, but because he cared the most. Years passed. Second Sunrise Cafe became famous across the city, then across the country. Ethan opened more branches, 5 cafes, 10 cafes, 20 cafes. But despite his success, he never forgot where he started. Every winter, he gave free meals to poor families. He hired people others ignored, single mothers, school dropouts, people struggling to restart life. One evening, a young reporter interviewed him and asked, "What's the secret behind your success?" Ethan smiled quietly. "There is no secret." The reporter looked confused. Ethan continued, "People think success comes from luck, but they don't see the lonely nights, the fear, the failures, the sacrifices." He paused for a moment. "Nothing is free, not success, not confidence, not respect. Everything has a price, and the price is hard work, patience, and refusing to quit." The interview went viral. Millions of people watched it. But the most emotional moment came later that night. Ethan visited his old neighborhood, the same broken streets, the same railway tracks. He stood in front of his childhood house, only this time, things were different. His mother no longer worked endless hours. Noah was studying at university, and for the first time in many years, peace lived inside that house. Ethan looked at the stars and smiled. Years ago, he had whispered, "One day I'll change everything." And he did. Not because life became easy, but because he refused to surrender. And maybe that's the real lesson. Your situation does not decide your future. Your pain does not define your ending. Your failures are not proof that you should stop. Sometimes life tests people before rewarding them. Sometimes the darkest nights prepare you for the brightest mornings. So if you are struggling right now, keep going. If people doubt you, keep going. If progress feels slow, keep going. Because one day your story may inspire someone else to survive. Remember this: dreams are expensive, success is difficult, and nothing is free. But for the people who refuse to quit, anything is possible.